Hi everyone, this is Darren with Simnation. Just continuing our Zero to Hero series, focusing on the University of Buffalo Bulls. If you remember the concept of Zero to Hero, essentially I am trying to take the Buffalo Bulls, who are the worst prestige team in the league, and get them to the playoffs after having taken them over at the season flip. So I only had enough time to do staff signing, some recruiting, training camp, and then now we're into the season. Uh, so if you remember the last video, we were going up against the University of Louisville, and I walked you through how I was going to plan for that and what I was going to do for that. I am happy to say that we did win the game, although it was a lot closer than I thought it would be. And we'll walk through that, and then I'm going to walk through how I'm kind of game planning for Mississippi State, who my hope is here I want to be 3-0. If we look at the calendar or the schedule, sorry, it's been a long day. Uh, a lot of these are winnable games for me. This one I don't believe is. I believe in week 11, unless I'm doing something really, really good. I don't see Buffalo getting past Rutgers. So my goal here is to hopefully be undefeated going into the Rutgers game. Because if I'm undefeated going into the Rutgers game, I have a good chance of making the playoffs even if I lose. Now, there were some spoilers along the way. I think really the last 4 weeks, three of those four matchups are going to be the ones where I could potentially blow it all. So Rutgers definitely, that's Kevin. Northern Illinois is all smiles, and that's going to be a tough game. And then Western Michigan's just tough because there's a big talent gap between the two teams. So if you remember, uh, Buffalo is running a vertical option. It's a fancy way of saying I'm going to throw the ball long, uh, and then basically run the ball and use a lot of option sets because I have fast running backs and fast quarterback. So against Louisville, decent game. Had to come back, had to win it. If we look at the tail of the tape, I definitely outdid Louisville in most categories. You can see that third down efficiency is a problem that I'm going to have to address at some point. But you can see the defense again did a pretty good job. Not as good as they did in week one against Texas State, but they held Louisville to 288 yards. Again, teams are finding it very hard to throw against this defense. It makes sense because I built the defense around a pass defense. And then also you can see a little bit of a crack hill with rushing that Louisville was able to run the ball decently. Penalties continue to be a problem for me. That has to do with the fact I'm playing people out of position. I have a lot of people who don't have high skill levels at their position, and that's creating some issues. Turnovers just continue to be a problem for me as well. I fumbled the ball again. I threw two interceptions in this game. I know why I threw those interceptions, and I think I can adjust for that. The fumbling is something that I'm just going to probably have to live with it to a certain extent because my quarterback, while having decent hands, doesn't have great hands. I think in the previous week, we talked about how I was going to start Austin at running back. I made a decision shortly after I made that video that I wasn't going to do that. I was actually going to start Willis, and it paid off. So as you can see, Berman didn't have as good of a game as he did the previous week. Still threw for over 300 yards, but that's two interceptions were kind of costly. Willis, really good job running the ball. Really happy with that. He's going to continue to start. Austin, not as good. Probably won't be the backup running back. Um, and then nothing really to report here. Field goal. If I get into a game where I have to win on field goals, I'm probably going to lose. I don't have a great field goal kicker. I do have a decent punter, but he's just not punting well, and we'll figure that one out over time. You can see the fumbles is again, Berman is fumbling quite a bit. This time, Carr fumbled, and it's just going to be an issue. Carr's a wide receiver, so he shouldn't be fumbling as often, but Berman is probably going to cough the ball up at least once a game. Maybe a little bit more. Defensively, still getting lots of penetration into the backfield, as you can see. Only 2 sacks this week, but a lot of hurries, a lot of knockdowns. The pass defense was on par. Got really good penetration despite the fact that they ran for quite a bit of yards against me. So all in all, it was a pretty good week. Getting good pancakes, not giving up a lot of sacks. Most of the sacks were probably more pressure sacks than anything else. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with how it all worked. Now, I'm not going to go through this ad nauseum, but what I do after every game is I go in and I look at the analysis of what I did to try to see what's working and what's not. I'm already starting to see a trend of some plays that I need to cut out because they're just not working for me. I also am beginning to wonder if the style of offense I'm playing is causing me a little bit of an issue. I'm sorry, I was looking at Louisville, not Buffalo, which is over here. Um, so again, you can start to see that there's certain plays that just don't seem like they're working. It'll be more evident when I go into the playbook, but these are plays I'm going to start looking at and start thinking about cutting out. Like inside slants is not working for me. And honestly, I probably shouldn't have that in the playbook anyways because it's a shorter passing route. But I can also see certain things here where certain of my options just don't seem like they're working really well. And it may be time to cut them out. I'm getting sacked quite a bit on this one. Those are really effectively sacks. And again, still not doing a lot of things. So I may cut more of the RPO out. So we'll talk about that in a second. So getting into this week's opponent with Mississippi State, the first thing I like to do is I look at the matchup to see how we kind of rank. We've never played each other. See a couple red flags for this game for me, and right off the bat, Mississippi State's scoring a lot of points. They're a pretty good pass defense that should play into my pass offense that should play into my favor. With Reagan, Barnes looks like he's the guy on that team right now. They don't look like really a big rushing attack, but they do look balanced. Um, Defensively, they've got a good defense, but not really against the rush, so that should favor me as well. Uh, I'm probably not going to throw for 300 yards in this game. And in fact, I'm probably going to think about, given how good their defense is against the pass, that maybe this isn't the game where I do more passing and less running. I probably want to do more running and less passing. Um, I do have some injuries. My defensive line's a little banged up, but nothing bad. The only one that may hurt is Small being hurt. He's been a pretty big piece of my offense so far. But the other thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and take a look at the roster, gauge kind of how I stack up. Again, I don't know who's starting and who's not, but when I look at the guards, I do need to worry about Sanderson. I do suspect he's a starter, but the other ones don't really give me a lot of concern. At the tackle, he's got really good tackles, so I'm going to try to maybe. I need to think about, do I adjust my defense to focus on what these guys aren't good at. They do have good pass blockers. Again, I do think they're going to throw the ball a little bit more than they run it, but they also have good rush blockers. They have some strength. In general, they move well. So their tackles, if I'm going to get pressure, I'm probably going to have to do it from the inside, not the outside. So that's something I need to think about. The center's not all that great. When I look at their tight ends and wide receivers, it's not an overly fast group. Like Rezo's fast, but he's not a really good catcher. Uh, so my cornerbacks largely should be able to keep up. When I look at the defense, I'm looking to see how fast the corners are. They do have some speed back there, but it's not a lot. Generally, my wide receiver should stack up well here. Linebacker wise, again, they aren't the greatest of tacklers. They do have speed. I got to account for that. That means that just if they're running 3-4s or 4-3s, I just need to think about that. Defensive end, again, they've got speed, they got size. Defensive tackle, again, they have size. They do have some people who have speed. And then in the safety realm, again, nothing really to worry about though. So all in all, the matchup is actually favorable to me, but Mississippi State is a team that I got to be careful with. The Ohio Prestige team to me, they are also a team that just they beat up on James Madison. And that's kind of relevant because James Madison is probably a better team than I am. but I'm going to try to out scheme them and hope that works. So I'm going to look at their staff next to get an idea. Again, because this isn't a human control team at any point, I think Stephen Christie's going to be the guy who most of the playbooks are based off of. So a run first vertical offense. It's going to be up the middle if he runs the ball, so I need to count for that with my defensive tackles. 4-3 hybrid defense, I need to count for the fact they play a lot of 4-3, which could hurt me with run defense because the 4-3 is actually better against the run than the pass. I mean, it's actually better than against the run. 3-4 is better with the pass, but we'll figure it out. I'm not really worried about the three because his linebackers, while they do have speed, aren't the best in the world, and I may be able to game plan around them. So let's go back to our team now that we've looked at them ad nauseum. Uh, I don't think I'm gonna make many changes this week, but I think one of the things here is Berman will start again. I'll probably keep Darby. He'll keep Wilson there. Darby's just a better third down back. I don't think I'm going to make any changes there. I am going to move Patrick Fox because I'm going to keep him as my primary wide receiver, but I want to move him to create a better matchup. So probably what I'll do is I'll put Joshua Blake Hill. I'll move probably Fox Hill, and let me explain why I'm doing this. So one of the things that let me just do this. This will make it easier. As you can see, I don't have the fastest people in the world, right? Um, one of the things I like about Blake is just he's consistent across the board with speed and hands. He has some intelligence, so I'm going to move him there. What that also means is that I'm going to need to potentially put Johnson, Hill. Again, Johnson is good at agility. I like agility in the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 spot. I do need to do a video because what you see on the plays is not always is not always what you think about. There are percentages in play for each one of those plays, which means that they're going to throw a certain percentage at a time to wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, and sometimes it's not intuitive. But that's the major change I'm going to make. Is just moving Fox to wide receiver 2 because I think that that matchup against cornerback 2, assuming that they do have balanced and they have them aligned against the cornerbacks against the wide receivers, that's going to be more beneficial to me than having him on wide receiver 1, where he could actually end up against somebody who's faster than him. Small, I'm not worried about this. Small's probably not going to play, but Randall can pick up the slack. Hagan, no real changes to the offensive line here. I don't see a reason to. My offensive line is actually playing somewhat well. I don't need to make any changes to my running because my run package, because again, there's no reason to change it. It's largely working. Now, defense, I mentioned this before, is because he's going to run up the middle a lot, what I need to make sure of is one, I have stronger uh, defensive linemen who are better tacklers. Now, the problem I have with this is I don't really have that. 59-54 is not bad for a defensive tackle. So what we're going to do here is we are, for the run package, which is the shorter one, we're already set. I don't need to make changes here. I'm not really worried about the two people injured here because, again, it'll get picked up by the backup, and I'm just not going to make a change to my depth chart. If I don't like the backup, I probably would do that, but I think they're probable if I remember correctly, so they're probably going to play. No real changes I need to make to the defense. I think this defense should stack well against them. Same thing for the run package because I already have the people who can plug the middle. They'll a little bit better. And again, I think they're going to do dives and stuff like that. So if anything, I might change my game plan for my defense to maybe include a little bit more 4-3 or something like that. Now, for transparency, I created a new playbook for this. And essentially, we'll talk through that in a second. But um, one of the problems that I noticed in my playbook, and I'll show you this now, uh, is if you look at some of my plays, I have a lot of balanced, um, a lot of short. So what I want to do is, even though these have been successful, what the new playbook is really, just going to export that. I'm going to import it back in, is I took this playbook that I already had, and we'll just go, okay, sorry. I got thrown off because for whatever reason I thought Buff was Colorado's offense. Don't know why I thought that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to essentially look at these plays that aren't working. Like this one isn't working. RB post, I think I'm fine with that. Pistol wide receiver comeback, it's working, and normally I would say don't remove it, but in this game, I want to try to spread the field a little bit more. So for this playbook, I am going to remove it. And then tight end cross, this is a medium. I'm okay with that. Again, short, going to get rid of that. This would also explain why I'm probably having more incompletions than I think I should. Again, looking at these, this is not working. Going to get rid of that. Counters, that one's working. I haven't ran that, but I'm going to get rid of it because diving up the middle is probably a bad idea for me. Post is balanced. I'll keep it. Sweep left, I'm going to get rid of it. Sweep right, I'm going to get rid of it. Slot corner, I'll keep that one because it's balanced. I'll keep that because it's medium balanced. Anything balanced or medium, I'm going to keep. Trail under, going to keep that again for the same reasons I've been saying. Slat, I was actually wrong. That's a medium pass. But I'll keep that. I'll keep that. You're just going to notice me keeping anything that's medium. Whether it's working or not, I can get rid of this one because it's not working and get rid of that. Sorry, I got caught up on just going through. RP looky, I'm going to get rid of this. It's really not working. Off tackles, I haven't ran those, so I'll keep them for now. There's no reason for me to get rid of them. Keep, keep. Um, I'll keep that one. I've only thrown one. It was one incompletion. I don't know that that's systemic of a problem, or that's indicative of a problem. Sorry. I'll get rid of this because it's short. That's long. I definitely want to keep it. And the reason why I'm doing this is Berman is a arm quarterback, so it's just better that I focus on the arm. Get rid of this because that's not going well at all. 1 to 3, I could get rid of that. That's actually not doing all that well, but I'll keep it for now. I'm going to get rid of slot read because it's just not working. Tight end check down. We'll hold on to it. He got sacked on it. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. This one I'm going to get rid of because that's pretty bad. Generally, my rule of thumb is if it's a medium pass, it should be more than 5 yards per, in that 5-yard average gain. Sometimes I'll keep it if I notice I'm getting a lot of touchdowns off it. But in those cases, 2 tight ends, I think all this is going to be fine. Yeah, all that's going to be fine. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some plays to it. Let me just do something real quick. Empty backfield, shotgun, shotgun 4. I'm going to try not to create a mismatch. I'm going to try to stay within the schema that the scheme that I've done. So what I'm looking for here is I'd like to add a few plays, but they need to be medium or balanced, and there aren't any there. So I'm going to try to stay, let's just do this real quick. We'll filter. My filter, just say pass. Okay. That'll make it a lot easier for us to see the plays. So again, what I'm looking for is medium or longs. I'm not going to do balance. I'm going to do posts. I like posts. They normally work, especially with a quarterback like Berman, who's got an arm. We'll add streak. Again, I'm trying to stretch the field. I'm not going to add any pistols right now. I have a love-hate with the pistol. I love the pistol in general in real life, but I'm not the biggest fan of it in this game. Um, Try not to add ones I already took off. Tight end post is one thing I like. Now, when you read this, you think that tight end post, you'd focus more on the tight end, which is normally what the play means. But this, when you look at the playbook and you look at the percentages, what you'll notice is this isn't the primary wide receiver. Or if I remember correctly, it's wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 1 is the primary, which is it's a little different than it should be. Tight end seam or add that one. And if you're asking why I'm adding some of these, this is just, it's essentially historical knowledge at this point. That these have worked for me in the past. If there's any spreads, I don't think that there are any spreads I really want to add. We'll add slot read, that's generally a good one. Drag read, all those are short, so I'm not going to add any jumbos. And cluttle. Add pissed. Post, sorry, not pissed. I don't know why I said that. Poke, wedge, streak, and streak. Okay, so now that I've added these, I'm going to again go back and just take a quick look and make sure I didn't add something that generally isn't working. We're going to get rid of this one because I didn't add that, but I'm just going to get rid of it because it's just not in line with what I want to do. I don't see anything that stands out as something I don't want to have. Running plays, I think I mentioned this in a previous video. If it's above 3, I'm going to keep it. The reality is options should be like 4 yards per carry, but I don't have a large enough. I added slot read. I need to get rid of that. So I don't have enough instances to be able to say whether something's going to work or not. I am going to get rid of tie and post. I did add that. So this is going to be the new playbook that they use. And mostly my hope is that against Mississippi State, I can widen the field. I can actually make better use of Berman. I had a lot of short passes, which he was doing okay with, but I think a lot of his incompletions were being brought on by some of those short passes. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. Now for D total, again, I'm just working this playbook out. I'll keep this one. Actually, I'm going to get rid of it because 11.7 is just a horrible. Anything passing that's above 5, I don't want to keep. Anything rushing oriented that is above 4, I don't want to keep. So I'm going to start trimming out some plays only because I'm trying to continually get this playbook to where I can split it and actually make it into 2 playbooks. So we're good there. I don't need to make any changes over here. I think generally I'm okay with this. I mean, I guess if I were to go back and look at Mississippi State with the last game and just take a look here, go to play analysis and just see what they're doing. So again, like I said, I thought that they were a balanced attack. And it looks like they are. So first down, they tend to run more than pass. So my first and 10, first and short should probably be run oriented. And then the other 2 should be probably pass. Second down, again, slightly more passing than running. So maybe second and short is a run, and then the other 2 is a pass. Ideally, I'd watch the game and I'd actually kind of write down what it is, but I'm not going to do that because that would be boring for you. And then third down, they're definitely passing more than they're running. So they're definitely a balanced attack. Comebacks, we saw this one earlier. So I'm just trying to get an idea of what they may be doing. It looks like a lot of medium to long passing. So let's go back and finish what we're working on. So we're going to change all this to copy. I'll look here in a second, see if I want to make some changes. So I think I am going to adjust a little bit for the fact that I want to run the ball a little bit more than normal. So let me think this one through. So if I think about this, I am gonna first in the two first, I am gonna, not 440, I am gonna change it up a little bit to run the ball a little bit more than I have been, only because they have the rushing defense is worse than their passing. Overhill, again, one of the things I can play with, and I do this occasionally, is for rushing downs, if I go back hill and I look at this, I may want to use this as my rushing playbook because a lot of these plays stack well against the run. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this. And of course, since it's running, I'm going to drop this below 30. We'll kick this up to 75. Probably the only reason why I'm changing these percentages, I'm trying to vary so that the CPU doesn't like suddenly start keying in on me. So a lot of times I'll plus it 20, minus 20. There's no rhyme or reason. You do what you want to do. Because I'm a blitz a little bit more often. Change this to 31. I'm just taking 40 off. That's the only reason why I'm doing it. Again, no rhyme or reason, right? This is just something that I do to try to randomize my defense so that the CPU maybe doesn't catch on as much and maybe doesn't focus in on what I'm doing. And it's random enough that if someone's watching this video who plays me later in the season, that they'd be like, I don't know what he's even doing. Now, on this game planning, again, I'm going to leave a lot of things blank here. I am going to focus on Burns because he came up earlier. I'm going to change this and go to medium and blitz. I don't think I changed any of that. Stay conservative. I don't see a reason to change that. I am going to none this, I think. Keep Fox. I'll keep Austin, McNamara. We'll change this over to balanced because a lot of the options and other things are more balanced. So I want the coordinator to focus more on those rushing plays I want them to call as opposed to what they may call. I don't think anything else here really changes. Let's just take one more look and just make sure that I am good here. Speed right. I think I am good. Yeah, I think we'll go with this. So that's going to be kind of how I view it. I don't think I'm going to blow Mississippi State out. I think it's going to be another close game. But the main reason why I'm making this change is if we look at Berman, um, he's decent at short, and he's actually better at short than he is at long. But I think that Mississippi State, I have a better chance if I spread them out a little bit more. If I wanted to, I could probably switch up and decide to go with Cahill, but the problem with Cahill is he's just not going to be the right person. Or I could decide to let Schumann play this game because Schumann is actually better. He has a better arm than Berman does, although well, he handles the ball better than Berman. Not really. Sorry, I missed that. So I think for right now, we're just going to leave Berman, but I want to spread the field out. I want to go along a little bit more. Uh, it's close enough between the two. He's not really good at, he's not elite at either, but he's good at both. But I think the key to winning this game is going to be for me to go more medium to long, because I have some good speed matchups. But I also, by me spreading the field out, I can probably open up the run a little bit more. I am going to run more in this one than I did in the two previous games, so I don't expect Berman to throw for 300 yards in this game. He is having a pretty good season, but he's also throwing a lot of interceptions. He's also fumbling the ball a lot. So I need to think about those things, and I think part of the issue is him throwing short on some of those passing routes is probably him throwing into space, and it's affecting his interception rate. I am gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do about the fumbles. Um, he hasn't really lost one yet, but again, even fumbling the ball, even if you don't lose it, that tends to over time kind of hurt. I am happy with Waquan Wilson. I actually didn't think that he would be better than Darby. I thought Darby on paper was better, but the extra little lift in agility I think is helping with Wilson a little bit. If we go back to roster and just look at the running backs. And I went back and forth with them. I think the challenge I went with Darby is because his skill was higher. I thought that all things being equal would equate to something a little bit different. They both don't have great hands. Now, Wilson is a better blocker, and I might want to think about that going forward. He's a little bit smarter. He's got a little bit better agility. He's a little stronger. So I think all that's equating to him just being a better running back for running downs, especially going outside and on the option than Darby. Um, I do want to at some point try Austin in that role, but I'm gonna wait until I start to have issues before I do that. So that's kind of what we're gonna do. I'm gonna finish up recruiting and then I'm gonna export this, but it should be kind of interesting to see how this plays out. Um, I'm pretty I am pretty curious to see if I can beat Mississippi State. Again, if I can beat Mississippi State, I think I have a pretty good chance of going undefeated until I face Kevin and Rutgers. And again, I don't see Buffalo getting past Rutgers. Rutgers is a better team. So that's it for now. A little bit longer video, but I know a couple of you have asked me to go a little bit more in depth with how I do the game planning and what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking. So apologies for the longer video, but hopefully you can use some of this. I will show you the playbooks at some point and explain what I was talking about earlier about it's percentage based. And even on things where it says tight end seam, it doesn't necessarily mean tight end is the primary wide receiver. So hope you have a good night. Take care. Talk to you later.